But she did have doubts before the wedding, as indeed he had massive doubts. But she also tells a story that when she walked down the aisle, she felt like a lamb to the sacrifice.
For years, members of Princess Diana's extended family have largely remained out of the spotlight when it comes to discussing sensitive royal matters. But now, one of Diana's nieces has reportedly stepped forward with comments that are generating intense interest and widespread debate.
And we hear from Diana's sister, but she and others in the family are commemorating her death, speaking candidly about their grief from 20 years ago.
As royal watchers examine every detail, questions are growing about what was said, why it was revealed now, and how it could affect long-standing perceptions of the royal family. Could this unexpected statement uncover a side of the story rarely discussed, but could it change how some view Diana's enduring legacy?
I flew back to London from Cape Town the next night. Tissues and crying, and then I thought, look, I've got to get a grip here and do something useful for Diana, and I decided the first thing that needed to be done was to find somebody to write and deliver the eulogy.
Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's explore the claims and the reaction they sparked. Diana's silent sister. For many years, the world focused almost entirely on Princess Diana. Her kindness, compassion, and unforgettable public life made her one of the most admired women in history. But while millions watched Diana, another member of the Spencer family quietly remained in the background. She never looked for attention, never chased headlines, and rarely spoke publicly. That woman was Lady Jane Fellowes, Diana's older sister, whose quiet strength is now drawing fresh attention. Unlike Diana, Lady Jane chose a life away from cameras. She avoided interviews and rarely commented on royal matters, even when interest in her family was at its highest. Many people wondered why she stayed silent while books, documentaries, and endless discussions about Diana filled newspapers and television screens. Those closest to the Spencer family believed the answer was simple. Jane valued loyalty over publicity and preferred supporting her loved ones in private rather than sharing personal emotions with the world. Everything changed after the heartbreaking tragedy in Paris. As the world struggled to accept Diana's sudden passing, Lady Jane stepped into one of the most painful moments of her life. She traveled alongside King Charles, then Prince Charles, and Diana's sister to bring Diana home. It was a journey filled with sorrow, watched by millions across the globe, yet through unimaginable grief, Jane remained calm and dignified, showing remarkable strength when her family needed it most. That same quiet devotion was visible again during Diana's funeral. Standing before mourners from around the world, Lady Jane delivered a moving reading that reflected not only deep sadness, but also the close bond the sisters had shared. It was one of the rare moments when the public caught a glimpse of the woman who had always chosen family over fame. In the years that followed, Lady Jane continued to play an important role behind closed doors. She remained close to Prince William and Prince Harry, offering steady support through family gatherings, important milestones, and difficult personal moments. Many royal observers believe her calm personality and trusted relationship with both brothers give her a unique place within the family. Her influence also extends into the next generation, with her daughter Laura becoming Princess Charlotte's godmother, showing that the connection between the Spencers and the young royals remains strong. Now, as tensions continue to surround the royal family, many believe Lady Jane's growing presence is no coincidence. Some see her as someone determined to protect Diana's values of compassion, family, and unity during one of the monarchy's most challenging periods. She may never seek the spotlight, but her quiet actions could carry more influence than anyone imagined. But if Lady Jane's calm presence was only the beginning, what explosive events turned private emotions into a night of anger? Keep watching to find out. Diana's niece reveals. For many years, Laura Fellowes chose not to speak publicly about the darkest night her family had ever faced. While her mother, Lady Jane Fellowes, and her aunt, Lady Sarah McCorquodale, became part of the heartbreaking events that followed Princess Diana's death, Laura stayed away from the spotlight. She carried the pain quietly, keeping the memories locked away. But after years of silence, she finally decided to reveal what those unforgettable hours felt like from her own point of view. Laura recalled that the night began like any other. She was resting at home when a sudden phone call shattered the calm. The fear in her mother's voice was impossible to ignore. Something terrible had happened to Diana in Paris, but no one seemed to know exactly what. Those few words were enough to fill the room with dread before any official announcement had even been made. Unable to sit still, Laura turned on the television, hoping each news update would bring clear answers. Instead, every report seemed to tell a different story. One moment there was hope, and the next there was fresh confusion. As reporters rushed to break the news, facts were replaced by uncertainty. Laura watched in disbelief as millions of people around the world tried to understand what had happened, while Diana's own family struggled to learn the truth themselves. Then came the devastating confirmation that changed everything forever. Diana had died. Laura described that moment as one filled not only with heartbreak, but with overwhelming frustration. She could not understand why so much confusion surrounded such a terrible event. Questions filled her mind faster than anyone could answer them. Why had reliable information been so difficult to find? Why did it seem that those closest to Diana were left waiting alongside the rest of the world? The disorder made an already unbearable tragedy feel even more painful. Her anguish deepened when Lady Jane and Lady Sarah traveled to Paris alongside King Charles to bring Diana home. Left behind in London, Laura could do nothing except watch the endless television coverage and wait for news. Every broadcast replayed the tragedy. Every headline reminded her that a woman known for kindness and compassion had suddenly become the center of a worldwide spectacle. Behind the cameras was a grieving family trying to process an unimaginable loss. As time passed, Laura's anger slowly changed into determination. Rather than allowing grief to define her forever, she focused on preserving Diana's memory in quieter ways. Supporting Prince William and Prince Harry and continuing the charitable spirit Diana had inspired became deeply personal missions. Even today, Laura admits those memories remain painful, but speaking about them has become part of protecting the woman her family loved beyond the public image. Yet Laura's memories also raise another troubling possibility. Were the unanswered questions simply the result of confusion, or was something deliberately kept from the public? Stay with us, because next we uncover the alleged royal cover-up and the shocking mystery that continues to leave many wondering what really happened behind palace walls. Palace secrecy allegations. Ever since Princess Diana's tragic death in 1997, claims of a royal cover-up have refused to disappear. Even after years of investigations, official reports, and public statements, many people still believe unanswered questions remain. The fatal crash in the Paris tunnel shocked the entire world, but almost as quickly as the heartbreaking news spread, so did endless speculation. While authorities concluded that reckless driving, high speed, and relentless paparazzi pursuit led to the disaster, some critics have never been convinced that every important detail reached the public. Much of the suspicion grew from the confusion that surrounded the night of the accident itself. Different reports seemed to tell different stories, leaving people uncertain about Diana's condition. Some messages suggested she was fighting for her life, while others claimed she had already passed away. That confusion deeply affected those closest to her. Her sister, Lady Sarah McCorquodale, later spoke about the emotional pain of receiving mixed information during those terrible hours. For many observers, the conflicting reports raised an uncomfortable question. If the earliest facts were so unclear, could other parts of the story also have been mishandled or overlooked? Years later, the official inquest into Diana's death attempted to provide answers. The jury concluded that the crash resulted from dangerous driving and the actions of pursuing photographers. Yet despite that verdict, public debate never completely disappeared. Some people involved believed certain issues deserved closer examination, while Diana's family continued pressing for every possible fact to be carefully reviewed. They avoided making direct accusations, but their determination to seek complete clarity encouraged fresh speculation about what questions remained unanswered behind closed doors. Adding to the mystery were Diana's own words before her death. She openly admitted feeling isolated within the royal system and believed her concerns were often ignored instead of taken seriously. Her recorded conversations with biographer Andrew Morton revealed a woman desperate to tell her side of the story, even if it meant breaking long-standing royal traditions. Those recordings transformed public understanding of her private struggles and strengthened the belief among many supporters that there were still hidden chapters of her life waiting to be uncovered. Others reject the idea of any cover-up, arguing that the tragedy was simply the result of devastating mistakes, intense media pressure, and heartbreaking circumstances. Still, the gap between Diana's openness and the royal family's silence continues to fuel endless debate. If Laura knew more than she ever revealed, what finally convinced her to keep certain secrets locked away until the very end? Let's break it down. Why they stayed silent.
The story that most royal coverage never touches, and it is the key that unlocks everything else. By long-standing accounts, it was Charles Spencer himself who first brought his sister into contact with Martin Bashir, the journalist behind that 1995 Panorama interview. The same interview the world now knows was obtained through forged documents and calculated psychological manipulation, fabricated bank statements, fake evidence of surveillance, manufactured proof of betrayal. All of it designed to convince a frightened, isolated woman that everyone around her was an enemy and that her only safe move was to sit in front of a camera and bleed for the nation. Diana's vulnerability was not incidental to that broadcast. Her vulnerability was the product, and her younger brother, by these accounts, had unwittingly held the door open. When the full truth about how that interview was engineered finally came to light years later, it reportedly hit Charles Spencer like a landslide, because it meant that he, however innocently, however unknowingly, had played a part in one of the most profound exploitations of his sister's suffering during her lifetime. Think about what that does to a person. Think about it carefully. You spend your entire adult life believing you are your sister's protector. You stood in Westminster Abbey in front of 2 billion witnesses and told the world you would shield her sons from the machinery that damaged her. And then you learn that the single most psychologically damaging media event of her final years walked through a door that you opened. Everything since, by every account, has been an act of atonement. The sealed archives, the refusals decade after decade, the decision to bury Diana at Althorpe rather than hand her resting place to the institution, the unseen home movies, the handwritten diaries that nobody outside the Spencer family has ever read. He has been doing penance, making absolutely certain that nothing like Panorama can ever happen to Diana again, even in death, even now, even 30 years later. And in doing so, he has achieved something extraordinary, something almost no famous figure of the modern era has been granted. He has protected Diana's mystery. There is a private Diana the world has never consumed, a real, unguarded, fully human version of her. And she exists only because one man has been saying no for 3 decades. Now put yourself in his chair. You have spent 28 years atoning for one introduction. You have turned down every network, every publisher, every production company, every offer. And then a courier arrives with a proposal. The truth about the rumors. Princess Diana and her elder sister, Lady Sarah McCorquodale, shared a bond rooted in their aristocratic upbringing. They grew up in a world of wealth and privilege, but their childhood was far from perfect. They were born into the aristocratic Spencer family, one of the most well-connected families in Britain, and they spent their early years at Althorpe House, their grand ancestral estate. From the outside, their lives seemed luxurious, but behind closed doors, they faced emotional struggles that shaped them in different ways. Diana was the 3rd daughter of John Spencer, Viscount Althorpe, and Frances Spencer, Viscountess Althorpe. She had 2 older sisters, Sarah and Jane, and a younger brother, Charles. The family lived at Park House, a home on the Sandringham estate, which was leased from the late Queen Elizabeth II. This meant that from a young age, Diana and her siblings were closely connected to the royal family. But while their surroundings were grand, their home life was filled with tension and struggles. Their parents' marriage had different problems, and by the time Diana was 6, everything fell apart. John and Frances went through a bitter and very public divorce, which deeply affected Diana and her siblings. She felt abandoned and struggled with feelings of loneliness. Unlike her early years when both her parents were still around, she now had to face the reality of a broken home. Sarah, as the eldest sibling, stepped in and tried to be a source of support for Diana, even though she knew no one could fully replace the love and security a young child needed from both parents. After the divorce, things became even more complicated. At first, Diana and her siblings lived with their mother in London, but a court ruling eventually sent them back to live with their father at Althorpe House, as their mother lost custody of them. However, their mother's absence created a deep wound in Diana's heart, and over time, their relationship became strained. Frances remarried, which only widened the gap between them. Diana longed for a mother's affection, but she felt like she had lost that connection forever. At Althorpe House, life was both beautiful and isolating. The massive estate had stunning gardens and impressive architecture, but it was also a place where Diana often felt alone. Her father, though loving in his own way, was not as emotionally expressive, and the absence of her mother left a void that Diana carried with her for the rest of her life. Growing up, Diana, Sarah, Jane, and Charles spent a lot of time together. They were raised in a strict but privileged environment, where they were expected to behave like proper members of the aristocracy. But despite the formal setting, the relationship between the siblings was still very normal. Sarah, who is the oldest, naturally took on a leadership role, while Jane was more reserved and independent. Charles, being the youngest and the only boy, was treated differently, as he was the heir to the Spencer title. And Diana, who was stuck in the middle, often felt like she had to find her own way. Even though they had each other, Diana felt different from her siblings. She was more sensitive and emotional, and she often kept her feelings to herself. While Sarah and Jane were confident and outgoing, Diana was shy and unsure of herself. She wanted to be loved and accepted, but she didn't always feel like she belonged. Furthermore, Diana was initially homeschooled under the supervision of her governess, Gertrude Allen, before attending Sillfield Private School in Norfolk, before moving on to Riddlesworth Hall School, a preparatory school near Thetford. When she was 9, she joined her sisters at West Heath Girls' School in Kent. But while Sarah and Jane managed well in school, Diana struggled academically. She failed her O-level exams twice, which made her feel inadequate compared to her siblings. However, Diana had strengths that went beyond the classroom. She had a deep love for music and dance, and she was especially passionate about ballet and tap dancing. These activities gave her a sense of joy and self-expression that she couldn't always find elsewhere. She was also a talented pianist and had a natural grace that made her stand out, and despite her academic struggles, her kindness and compassion set her apart. She had an instinct for helping others and a deep understanding of people's emotions, which she was later called the People's Princess because of that kindness. At West Heath, Diana was recognized for her caring nature and received an award for her community spirit. She was someone who could connect with anyone, whether it was a struggling classmate or a staff member. She had a warmth that made people feel safe and understood, even at a young age. And by the time she turned 16, Diana's formal education was coming to an end. She briefly attended Institut Alpin Vidaminet, a finishing school in Switzerland, but it didn't last long. After just one term, she returned to London, ready to start a new chapter in her life. And unlike many aristocratic young women who relied on their family wealth, Diana wanted to work and create her own identity. Moving into a shared flat with 2 school friends, Diana took on various jobs to support herself. She worked as a dance instructor for children, a nanny for an American family, and later as a nursery assistant at the Young England School in Pimlico. These jobs might have seemed ordinary, but they reflected Diana's deep love for children and her natural ability to care for others. Even before she became a princess, she was already showing the qualities that made her beloved around the world. However, despite her independent streak, Diana remained close to her siblings, especially Sarah. The bond they shared from childhood never fully faded, even as their lives took different paths. Sarah was always there, offering quiet support when Diana needed it, though she rarely spoke about their relationship in public. Diana's life was moving in a new direction, but she had no idea how much it was about to change. In 1977, when she was just 16, she met Prince Charles for the first time. This happened at Althorpe House, where Charles was visiting as a guest. At the time, Diana was just a shy teenager, and Charles was already a well-known figure in Britain. Their first encounter was brief, but it shaped the future in ways no one could have predicted. And after a few years, their paths crossed again, and this time, everything changed. Diana had grown into a young woman, and Charles saw her in a new light. They started dating, and their relationship quickly became one of the most talked about royal romances in history, capturing the attention of the entire world. But here is the most intriguing part.
What comes next for the niece who rocked the crown? Laura Fellows never intended to create ripples in the royal pond. Yet here she stands on the brink of a new chapter that could shift how the world remembers Princess Diana. For years, she was simply known as the quiet niece, the daughter of Diana's sister, Lady Jane Fellows. She stayed out of the headlines and avoided the cameras, preferring a calm life where family came first. Now, though, whispers say Laura holds fresh insights into Diana's final hours and the emotional fallout that followed. Friends close to Laura claim her recent decision to speak up stems from a bold desire for clarity. She's reportedly tired of watching conspiracies, half-truths, and tabloid fluff dominate discussions about her aunt's legacy. As a child during all the chaos, Laura felt powerless, seeing the heartbreak in her own family's eyes, hearing contradictory reports, and sensing that grief was being twisted for public spectacle. Stepping forward now isn't just about setting the record straight. It's about protecting her aunt's memory in a culture that still clings to sensationalism. But what comes next for Laura isn't without its risks. Some worry that she could face a quiet pushback from the royal establishment, or from those who'd prefer to keep Diana's story locked in polished tradition. The monarchy has shown, time and again, how fiercely it defends its privacy. Even unofficial channels have ways of closing ranks around those who veer too far off the official script.
Royal tensions and Laura's uncertain future. As Laura Fellows begins sharing more of her perspective, fresh questions have emerged about how the royal family might respond. Some royal commentators believe that any new revelations about Princess Diana's final years or emotional struggles could be viewed as a challenge to the carefully protected image of the monarchy. Although no official warnings have been issued, there is growing speculation that members of the Spencer family remain cautious about crossing certain boundaries. Over the years, reports suggest the palace has consistently preferred to keep deeply personal matters private. Stories involving Diana's private letters and alleged diaries have reportedly been met with calls for discretion and respect for royal privacy. Some critics argue this reflects the monarchy's long-standing tradition of carefully managing sensitive issues, while others believe it is simply an effort to protect the dignity of everyone involved. Lady Sarah and Lady Jane have long understood the delicate balance between defending Diana's legacy and avoiding unnecessary conflict with the institution she was once part of. Their careful approach has often meant choosing silence over confrontation. Laura Fellows now stands at a difficult crossroads, balancing her desire to speak with the responsibility she feels toward her family. People close to her say her decision to finally share her memories has been met with quiet caution rather than open encouragement. Although there is no evidence that anyone has directly tried to silence her, many believe gentle reminders about family loyalty and respecting private matters may make her think carefully before saying more. Even so, Laura appears determined to move the conversation beyond shocking headlines and conspiracy theories, focusing instead on the lasting emotional pain Princess Diana's death left on the Spencer family. Many royal watchers believe Laura Fellows will continue to speak with care, choosing honesty over sensational headlines. Instead of creating fresh controversy, she may one day share her memories through a thoughtful memoir or a carefully handled interview that highlights the Princess Diana she knew personally. A loving aunt, devoted mother, and compassionate humanitarian. Such a decision would likely be welcomed by those who want a deeper, more human understanding of Diana beyond the endless speculation. Others, however, may feel that certain parts of royal history should remain private out of respect for the family. Whatever Laura decides, her voice has already added a new perspective to Diana's remarkable story. Nearly 3 decades after her death, Diana's influence remains as powerful as ever, continuing to shape conversations, inspire compassion, and strengthen the lasting bond between the Spencer family, the royal family, and millions around the world. So, what do you think about Diana's niece's revelation? Was she diplomatic, or could she have revealed even more? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.